Well, and you put your skills to good use. You know, people, they get very mad at me for being on the radio, as if I'm taking advantage of, you know, the situation. And here I am on the radio. And why aren't I working in a warehouse or something somewhere? And the answer to that is when I woke up in 2001, I was already on the radio and I was running radio stations. So it seemed to me like the best thing I could do would be to take all of the knowledge that I had gained in defining that as my craft and using it for something positive. And that's exactly what I did. Now, people can argue that I haven't learned very much and I don't do a very good job. That's certainly up to you. Believe me, I'm harder on myself than you probably are. But, Rich, you did the same thing, and that is, you know, here you are, you're working in New York, you're working in the Trade Center towers, you got big connections, you're driving around, you know, $100,000 cars, you're living on top of the world, and then 9/11 happened, and now you've taken those skills that you used to kind of aid and abet to set people free.
That's exactly how I try to look at it, and that's an astute observation, Jack. I'm glad to hear you observe that, because I had one of the most rude awakenings that anybody could ever go through, and still live through it. Most of the people who went through ruder awakenings that day had perished, unfortunately. So I tried to use that stress and that unknown and that fear that anyone going through that experience would face, and focus it into learning and growing and kind of filling the gap that was brought to my attention that day. The blind spot that occupied my perception was, that none of that stuff should be going on here. And I had all sorts of ideas, but where did those ideas come from? They came from a public school system. It came from reading the Wall Street Journal. It came from what's called citicism, which was a bunch of parroting beliefs that I had no knowledge and understanding of, but I took those on as part of myself. And that day, a lot of those beliefs got ripped away, and I was left with reality. And it takes some time to go through that learning process. But ultimately, when I tried to communicate what I was seeing and what I had experienced, and I found that there was a lot of people who did not want to publish that information, even though they were so-called independent media, I took it upon myself to learn how to be the media myself and learn how to create and learn how to communicate. And I think that's one of the strongest things that I learned through the whole process was how to communicate, not only, through voice, but, visually through films, through writing different articles and whatnot. So being able to not just communicate what I was taught or what I was conditioned to parrot or, when you push the buttons, but to actually learn on my own and to think about a lot of these subjects and to understand, more importantly, our opposition and their operating system of critical thinking, because their system... Yeah. Their system allows them to consistently outwit us. And that's been going on.
I want to get into that information. I don't want to be talking about you and I, but I say that because, if I kept on my path of my pursuit, working 15 hours a day, managing people, who knows, I would be running hundreds of Clear Channel radio stations at this point, and I'd be, making a lot of money, living a totally different life. Same with you. If you would have went, okay, well, that was a close call on 9/11, and you went back into the system, back into the matrix, I mean, again, you'd be living high on the hog. Not to say you aren't now, but, the fact of the matter is, we put that aside because this is something not only that we're passionate about, that is kind of a life and death thing. And that's the commonality that I would share with you, Maria Heller, and so many of the people I know who are successful already. They've already proven themselves in the matrix. They've already proven themselves in the world, climbing the corporate ladder. But they decided to take those talents into the freedom movement. And I think when we look around us, Rich, and we see things like the Tea Party, those town hall meetings, all of that stuff came from our life force, not me and you, but all of us together individually in a collective. So we're not collectivists, but we are individuals who are working together in one way or one capacity or another. And we are seeing the changes. The fact that they even openly talk about the Federal Reserve printing money out of thin air on big shows like Rush Limbaugh now. The fact that, these topics are coming up and getting on major news networks is a dream that I had, 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah, I think they're just a little bit cocky at this point because we have demonstrated as a public for the last century that we were not willing to recognize these problems and learn our way out. And the fact that a few people started making noise and getting better at making this noise such that it's a signal that you can receive and you can understand and you can you can take it and use it now. It's no longer just these theories floating out there. There is coherent logic to all of this now, right? So I think that the fact that you've seen so much of it on the media was them saying, well, we'll put it on the media because there's nothing you guys can do about it. But the fact that we can become autonomous individuals and also work as a group is something that I don't think that Cecil Rhodes and the New World Order had ever thought
Let's
of.
pick up there when we come back with Richard Andrew Grove, tragedyandhope.com. Yes, it is a take on Carol Quigley's work. I'll tell you what, we'll take questions. A lot of people over in our chat room right now, deadlinelive.info. Deadlinelive.info, click on chat, and I'll look for your questions there. You can call in and join myself, my guest, Richard Andrew Grove. He's got a great new, I'll call it a documentary series, but it's so far past a documentary. It's almost like nothing I've ever really seen in film before. I love it. It is What You've Been Missing, Exposing the Noble Lie, and Richard Andrew Grove is our guest today. Richard, I want to talk about education because you have one of the top podcasts rated #1 under higher education. I want to ask you about that, but I've got to get you on the record here because it's Veterans Day. Rah, Amen Ra, Veterans Day, red, white, and blue. The public school requested that my child wear red, white, and blue today. I almost put him in a suit because that's what wars kind of represent to me. But God bless the USA today. All right. What are your feelings on Veterans Day? And I guess we need to be somewhat sensitive to our poor, and I do mean poor, because that's how they got into this voluntary military in the first place. And poor troops who are going out for their 5th tour of duty today to defend democracy.
Well, I think the thing that everyone could do to honor the troops would be to learn why they are actually at war. You could read a small, 35-page article by Major General Smedley Darlington Butler called War is a Racket. And in there, he explains that war is based on consumerism. It's based on profit, and it will continue as long as war is profitable. And right now, war is more profitable for these companies than ever.
Well, and Cecil Rhodes knew that very well. He was one of the engineers of multiple African wars for resources, such as the Boer War. He made his money. He put his money into the so-called round table groups. That brings us the Royal Institute of International Affairs, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Club of Rome, the eugenics program, and many, many more. In fact, I got to tell you, on the side, I was kind of shocked. By the way, that Smedley Butler speech you just mentioned, posted front page on our website today, deadlinelive.info, so you can go read it if you haven't already. I saw McCain during the so-called debates, and I say so-called because they pretty much agreed on everything. So there wasn't a lot of debating going on there, and if it wasn't the right debate. And someone had asked him, I think at one of the debates or one of the town hall meetings that he was doing, about depopulation. Again, this was one of our people. What about depopulation? What about, killing off and reducing the population in order to save the planet, et cetera, et cetera? And, McCain could have easily said, I don't know what you're talking about, or, global warming, which he was for before he was against it. He could have said that. Instead, he said, I know all about the Club of Rome. I'm not in it. I thought that was kind of startling just to mention the Club of Rome. The guy didn't bring it up. He did.
Right, but he's read the Club of Rome's 1992 paper on population control and global warming and how they were going to use the media to convince all of us that it was going on and how they had been polluting the environment for 30 years to make it believable. Because what they do is they sensationalize and aggrandize a situation of toxicity with products that are, planned obsolescence, products that you buy at the big box stores and they go bad 6 months later and you got to buy another one because no one fixes these products anymore. We create giant amounts of garbage for no reason other than profit. We are stuck on a petroleum standard when there are other clean alternatives because of this. People like Bill Gates negate to mention trees and the fact that plants take in carbon dioxide, and the more trees we have, the lower CO2 we would have. But he doesn't mention anything about that because he probably has friends that benefit from cutting down the rainforests. Okay?
Well, as he admitted, vaccines are used for depopulation. We caught him saying that. And there was in your first installment of this series, again, it is What You've Been Missing, Exposing the Noble Lie. You have a lot on depopulation in there, and you start adding up the numbers, and you go, well, if we're getting rid of people, if we're, stalling population growth, and I got to tell you, I'm with David Icke on this. I don't know if I believe the 7 billion number. I don't know who's giving it to me. I have to question if that's even the number and if it isn't sustainable after it is the number. But you start looking at this and you go, well, there's less and less people in the world, but there's more and more old people. And then, here we are out there. Well, we've got to take care of all these old people. And it's just, again, I hate the word sustainable, but it's not sustainable like Obama health care. It's not sustainable. None of this is. None of it actually fits. And it has to bring in this chaotic situation to create what they call the New World Order, which ain't so new. So you have a lot in your piece about this, including history of eugenics programs, and that brings us, I guess, if you want to comment on that, go ahead. But if that brings us to No Child Left, I know I go very fast. It's the interfood. No Child Left Behind, UNESCO, United Nations, Julian Huxley. This is all borne out and admitted. Aldous Huxley was the whistleblower. He died on November 22nd, 1963. No one really noticed because they killed Kennedy on that day. And we look at this structure, the education department, the American Education Association, the NAE, these are associations that were put together through philanthropist endeavors of one Rockefeller.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back and touch on the school making your kid wear red, white, and blue. That's coming from the British East India Company, which is where the American flag comes from. And Thomas Malthus, who comes up with this mathematical theorem, which was wrong, worked for the British East India Company College. He trained the corporate employees of the British East India Company, which is a cartel. Now let's take that idea of cartel and move to the idea of diamonds. Anyone around us at any given time, within a couple feet of us, there are usually diamonds. And I would like you to ask yourself why there are diamonds all over North America right now. Why are we bought into the idea of diamonds? And more importantly, who controls the world's diamond cartel? Well, De Beers was started by Cecil Rhodes. And so instead of going from the New World Order perspective, let's just start from the diamond perspective. Cecil Rhodes bought up the farmer De Beers farm, consolidated all these other farms, helped to create apartheid in South Africa, helped to create concentration camps well before the Nazis. And these were all Brits. These were all British people from Oxford that were doing this. And in his fourth will from 1888, according to Sir Anthony Kenny of Oxford University in the History of the Rhodes Trust, he says that Cecil Rhodes left his will and the bulk of his money to Lord Rothschild, who in 1916 helped to create a future Zionist state called Israel. So there's a New World Order all wrapped up in a nice little bundle with the word diamonds all over it. You can search that on Google. You can find about the Oppenheimer family. You can find out about blood diamonds. The New World Order has us all and all of our families subscribe to these myths. That's the noble lie. And once you can start to learn your way out of that and ask the questions, you might decide that there's something better you can do with your time and energy than to try to represent love with a stone that is neither rare nor a show of anything that has to do with love.
Sure, you can make a synthetic diamond for industrial or even decorative use much cheaper than starting wars and creating, death marches with machetes. But that's what they like. They like that, and I got to tell you, we've been talking about this for years. Richard Andrew Grove with us on the show today. They like it. They like the killing. I mean, they like having blood on their hands. It makes them feel manly or whatever, or it initiates them into the next level of the secret society process. Am I going off the rails here with that?
Well, not really, because basically the strategy behind let me first differentiate the Old World Order versus New World Order. The Old World Order is the concept of having to use military might and direct force, spears in your face, cages around your body to control you. The idea of a New World Order evolved around 2,500 years ago. It's where the idea of America comes from with our republic, and it has to do with controlling you through words, which is where we need to start when we come back from break.
Thank you for catching that. I call it covert colonization, both of land and mind. Richard Andrew Grove with us, Tragedy and Hope. His new series is fantastic. You can find it. What You've Been Missing, the Exposing the Noble Lie. I'm Jack Blood, Oracle. Be right back.